months later.
Welcome people, welcome back. You don't know, it's your boy Kamani Brown, and today we're going to be speaking about the MacBook Air, more specifically the OG M2 MacBook Air. Right here, you guys, if you've been with me from quite a while, you saw when I installed this D brand acid skin, Damascus acid skin. Pretty awesome. It has held up splendidly over the years. As you can see, no nicks, no dings, a couple scratches here or there, but it has done well. It has done its job to protect this thing from any scratches. Now, in this video, I'm actually going to be speaking about, is this thing worth it, especially now with it being the base entry level into MacBook world. Yes, it is the cheapest model that they have right now. Now, the prices may vary depending on your region, but I'll of course put them up on the screen. However, I always recommend getting it directly from Apple as best as possible. I mean, that way you're guaranteed that it is in full working order, fully inspected and everything. I mean, the thing is, these things are very tough, very reliable and very durable with their aluminum build. But buying from the Apple refurbished store is always a move once it makes sense. And with these things being out for quite a while, that is the cheapest route. Now, after using this thing for 2 whole years, yes, it is 100% worth it. And it's not just to get by, but actually, I've done some pretty heavy workloads with this thing. Now, right now, I'm using it more than ever with not just creative workflow every now and then. I mean, I do most of my heavy lifting with my Mac Studio, but with me being in school, this thing goes with me everywhere. And with it being so thin, razor thin and light, yeah, it's worth every penny. Now let's get straight down into it. First of all, I'm not going to be doing much synthetic benchmarks. If you want to see any of that, I'll do a bit of it towards the end of the video, so you can check the timestamps to see that for yourselves. A bit of Cinebench, a bit of Geekbench 6. I mean, Geekbench 6 gives you more real-world stats than Cinebench, but I'm tossing that in anyway. And a bit of 3D Mark, of course. But I'm going to be showing you live here. This, I did not prepare anything on this. This is coming straight, fresh from my morning session in school. So this thing has not been restarted in about a couple of weeks. This is as real as it gets. And that's what's most important. You need to know and see how this thing actually works, right? I actually forgot my SSD. I'm gonna have to cut the video. You may see a jump cut. And I actually go for my SSD, plug it in here, and actually run DaVinci Resolve as well, letting you guys see my workflow, how this thing performs with a fairly heavy timeline, and you'll know for sure if this thing is worth it. Surprise, not so much of a surprise. Yeah, it's worth it. So let's get straight into it. Let's just do a quick spec rundown. Now, as I said before, it's full aluminum all around. It's thin and light. It's pretty squared off. I actually have the M1 MacBook Air here for comparison. This is the back of both of them. They're pretty much dead even. However, when you put them side by side, the wedge shape here from the M1 MacBook Air is definitely thinner towards the front. Here's the M2 yet again. This has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports here, MagSafe 3, of course, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. So pretty simple, pretty bare bones. However, you're gonna have to just enter dongle land with this thing. Get your fairly cheap USB-C dongles on Amazon. I'll leave one in the description below if you're interested to check that out. And going into the device itself, you have a 13.6-inch display right there. You have the regular, fairly reliable, of this generation at least, no more those butterfly keyboards. This backlit keyboard here, the class leading trackpad here made of glass and magnets. You can click anywhere. The gestures are extremely precise and it doesn't get much better than that. And of course, the well-known, world-renowned Touch ID. So that's it. Also, it has a 1080p camera up here in the notch. I actually logged in by touching the button there for a second. And that's it. Pretty smooth. You can actually open this thing Here it is, one-handed, pretty smooth hinge. One-handed opening, pretty smooth hinge. All right, so pretty premium product here for the price. Let's just jump straight into the real world testing right about now. All right, peeps, like I said, there's probably a jump cut right there because I had to go and get this from my Mac Studio, my OWC Envoy Express Thunderbolt 3 SSD. Well, it's more or less a case. I actually built this myself. And that's one more thing I forgot to note. This is the absolute base model, the bottom of the barrel base model with the controversial, slower 256GB SSD in it. However, to get around it with size and speed, you can get one of these. I built this myself. By build, I mean I just simply pull 2 screws, put on the included thermal tape, and just stick it in there and put on about the 2 screws. That's it. Very reliable, all metal chassis, and has held up pretty well. Doesn't get too hot. And if you're wondering if this cable is removable, yes it is. It's just that you actually have to pull the 2 screws here, like I said before, get in there, and you just pull another screw or 2 and this thing just comes right out. You can put on a longer cable if you want, another branded cable, whatever, but it works. I'll leave this in the description below as well. I highly recommend this, whether it's for this Mac or any other Mac or any other computer, your iPad, or even the new iPhones if you own a generation 15 or 16. I mean, iPhone 15 or 16 generation, whatever, guys. But yeah, so get this. You don't need anything more than this. You have those Thunderbolt 4 rated ones out there. The speed's the same, more or less. You don't need anything more than this. That was a little rant there just to show you there are ways and means around that controversial base speed of the base model M2 MacBook Air. But let's move on. Let's get straight into the device itself. Now this is completely real world, right? Real world here. And I'm actually going to start a screen recording. I'm not doing any setup of my desktop or everything. This is raw and live in living color. Command Shift 5. That's a shortcut to get the screen recording going. And now we're live and we're in. So you may be seeing it on screen right about now. Now, here we are, there's Geekbench 6. We'll get to that later. Now just to show you guys what I have running at the moment. Where it is, activity monitor. Right, here it is. I have a couple instances of Safari open, some Word documents from school, messages, my mails app, preview, which really and truly are just some slides from school yet again, Finder, some files that I have open, Outlook, which is my school email, App Store, of course, Canva, WhatsApp Messenger, TG Pro, which I use to actually, monitor my temperatures, which being here in Halifax, Canada, that's pretty negligible. This thing almost never passes 40 degrees Celsius unless I'm pushing it. Yeah, it's cold, people. It's a height of winter right about now. That's for my Logitech mouse. Remote desktop for Windows. I use Windows in school with all my coding and data analysis. Settings, calculator, spotlight search, activity monitor, which we're in right now, terminal, which I use to access Python for school and do whatever coding environments, and some other stuff which are just for keeping the system alive and running. Yeah, so you get the picture here, and I'm going at length to explain. This is one of the controversial things here, the memory pressure, with this being 8 GB of memory. Now, a lot of people were saying, oh, that's too low, and that's why I almost said Sony. That's why Apple actually beefed up the stock memory to 16 GB of memory. So any MacBook Air you buy, or MacBook Pro, any Mac at all that you buy, even now the base M2 MacBook Air comes out with 16 GB of memory. So the purpose of this video is to show you if this, the OG base model, can get by on doing all of your daily tasks and more. The current base model, which is even better with double the RAM, should perform it even better with ease. But just to show you guys, because this thing has 8 gigs of memory, it relies more on the SSD, which is this whole memory pressure thing here. I'll get more into detail with that. It relies more on the SSD to pick up the slack, because with these new generation of Apple Silicon Macs, they actually build the CPU, GPU, SSD and RAM on one single chip, more or less, just keeping it simple, people. So there's basically little to no lag at all, because these things are all in the same place. So to pick up the slack, when you run out of memory, it relies more on SSD to control stuff in the background. Now, is the SSD slower than the RAM? Of course, yes. I'll put both of them on the screen here so you guys can compare or see the difference in numbers. Does it affect performance? It depends. And by depends, I mean not much. Normal use is imperceptible to you. Trust me, I haven't really noticed any slowdowns with this thing, and I'm going to show you right about now. Now, jumping into it, I have several Word documents open. I'm not going to open them for obvious reasons. Privacy, of course. Slides here from school, I don't need to hide that, that's general information. My remote work desktop there, which I use to access Windows. My terminal, which I actually need to close out of, but just to show you guys first before I get there, I actually have Python running in the background here, several stuff here, several stuff from school, some data analysis stuff and whatever, some browsing right about there. But let me close out of this right now while I'm on camera, just to show you guys. This is live in living color. Let's come out of Jupyter Notebooks there for a second. Yeah, I was doing a lot of that this morning. Settings open, App Store is open. I just actually downloaded 3D Mark for this video. Calculator, Canva. You guys may recognize this thumbnail here from one of my older videos. Check it out if you haven't, it's pretty good. WhatsApp, Mail, Outlook, Messages, which I will not open for privacy reasons yet again. Don't want you guys to see my personal messages and whatever. Another instance of Safari. This is my YouTube page with a bunch of other YouTube tabs open and whatever. And Finder with several instances of that open right now. So now you know why all of the memory is pretty much consumed and it's relying more on swap. So it's currently using about 2.8 gigs of the SSD to mimic RAM at the moment. Now, the average person most likely won't even touch in here, because this is not like Windows. To close an app, you simply come up here and you just simply press force quit and they close the apps from here or relaunch them. It's pretty fast, they're pretty easier, yeah. But all these dots on the here represent apps that I currently have open, and they're currently over here as well. And yeah, just to show you guys, this thing is pretty much flying, still flying. Getting back into this, the memory pressure, I have redlined this thing. The most I've ever experienced is probably a little hesitation in apps popping up back from the tab, from the dock. I said tab, from the dock, which, yeah, here's ChatGPT as well. I also have that open. But that's it, guys. For the average user, you will not notice any real slowdown at all. I've had this thing running for weeks. I have not restarted this thing for weeks. It's incredibly efficient in memory management and resource management. Apple has hit a home run with these Apple Silicon Macs, that is for sure. It's currently windy at -5 outside, guys. It is pretty cold. Weather has been crazy the past couple of days. And yeah, guys, I mean, that's all you really need to know right about now with this thing. So I'm just going to stop the recording, stop that. Hopefully it's saved. I actually did this a couple of times and realized that after 10 minutes it didn't continue or whatever. But yeah, guys, getting back out of this. This thing is incredible. It's thin, it's light. I can, like, My classmates with their Windows laptops are always, you know, scared, and they see me running around holding this thing with like 3 fingers. Yeah, just running around with it like this. But it's light, it's like a toy, but it feels so premium and solid in your hands with this whole aluminum chassis that it's got going on here. And another thing I needed to mention, let me actually get back into let me do a little more screen recording here just to show you guys. Control Shift 5, yet again, getting back into this thing, showing you guys the battery. I didn't press record. Showing you guys the battery. Let's go into battery settings here, and this is it. Now, my battery health is currently sitting at 86% after 2 years of use. Very good. Although I take care of my stuff. Yet again, I explained this in one of my earlier iPhone videos. Be careful how you charge your stuff, especially things with lithium-ion batteries. Do not let them redline or go to 0 often. Try and charge them and plug them in at around the 30% mark. 20% if you can't help it, and plug them out once it hits around 80-85% as much as possible. If you're going a full day, of course, plug it into 100, but plug it out as soon as it hits there. This thing sips power, like sips power, people. So I can easily, even at the 86% battery life remaining, I easily get through a full work day, a full school day from 8:30 to 3 or 4. I'm done, still with about 40% remaining at this level, the 86%, and that's me having the screen on, coding and doing stuff like that. Now, you won't get that if you're doing heavier tasks like video editing and so forth. And one more thing I actually forgot to mention. How could I, guys? Like, I actually went through all the trouble to cut the video for this, but let me plug this in just to show you guys this thing isn't exactly planned. I want you guys to see raw usage of this thing. So the SSD is now plugged in, and here we go. Here it is, the crucial OWC. And let's get into DaVinci Resolve. It may prompt me to update. I haven't done that in a little while. Let's see if I actually remember to do it. Let's see. Nope, guess it's good to go for now. I'm going to open one of my more recent videos. I'm trying to decide. Yeah, let's do this. It's up on my channel. Guys should check out this video. It's pretty much a banger. Alright, it's fairly heavy. This red means that something is missing because I moved it around or something. Can fix that some other time. But a fairly intensive timeline here. Not the most intense, but you catch my drift. And just to show you guys something, right? Something of note, always set your timeline resolution, always set your video monitoring to 1080p because it uses less resources. I mean, it's a tiny screen here. Why the hell do you need this to be 4K? And this is not a 4K display. Anyway, none of the Macs are, but even on my 4K 120 FPS OLED LG C3 TV back there, when I'm editing on my Mac Studio, I keep this at 1080p. It's a tiny screen. Yeah, but anyway, I was going to play this. Oh, it's muted. The answer is oftentimes no. Playing smoothly, people. I needed it. I really did. Yes, I really did. Yeah, it's playing smoothly, people. And I sort of here it is. Not because now with the ray tracing and the locked. And these are two video feeds between the screen recording and my video. So this is two 4K things here. And this is a 4K 60 FPS video, by the way, people. And I'm just jumping through the timeline here. It's working. And these up here are actually 4K videos on top of 4K videos. Effects, transitions, everything is working. Let me jump through again. You see, this thing is just working flawlessly. It's just flying, people. Yeah, people like me. And this is on top of it actually doing a screen recording, so it's doing stuff along with all the other apps that I currently have open on this thing. Do you need to see more? Do you need to see more? Right? I don't think you need to see more. Now this is blatantly obvious. This thing is more than... Guys, my throat is cold and a bit... Yeah, my throat. I'm not getting sick, but it's a bit dry. But, yeah guys, this thing can more than easily handle your day-to-day tasks with ease. And I highly doubt the average person is going to be doing all of this, editing a crazy timeline with, you know, Word apps and coding stuff in the background and a couple instances of your browser with tons of tabs open. And I'm just opening stuff as I go along, editing in Canva with couple tabs open, Chat GPT and all kinds of crazy stuff open. Yeah, this is as real as it gets, and it's working flawlessly, people. Like, if you just love tech, if you love video games, it's working flawlessly. And this is all while video recording. So let's close out of this now. Guys, this is it. As I said, I'm going to be throwing in some synthetic benchmarks next. For all you nerds out there who want to see the real numbers, I don't think it's all that important. Real world use is what is most important. That is what is key, and that's... Damn, this weather. That is why it is so important. And need I say more? Let's jump into those synthetic benchmarks and then we close out this video. I have no idea why I even closed the laptop. But anyway, let's get right back into it. Getting back in, of course, I'm all about saving time here where it's necessary. I've already taken the liberty of completing the benchmarks here. Now, you know how it goes, kiddies. Command Shift 5 and right into the recording. Now, getting straight into it, let me start out with, some Geekbench here. Here are the scores. Now, single core 2619, multi-score 9698. All you nerds out there, do with that what you will. Let's move on. Of course, I'm on the latest macOS. I actually think it needs to upgrade to 15.3. Anyway, let's move on. Here are the specs. I've mentioned most of them already. I didn't so much mention more about the processor, which as you can see is 3.48 gigahertz, 4 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores. It doesn't state them here, but I'm not just telling you guys. There's a cache. Of course, the memory is 8 gigs. And here's everything else. Regarding a single core, file compression, navigation, HTML5, browser speed, PDF renderer, photo library, Clang, whatever the hell that is, text processing, asset compression, object detection, background blur, horizon detection, blah, 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 and multi-core performance. The same thing. Have a look at the numbers, you nerds, and feast your eyes and enjoy. That's it. Moving on to Cinebench, just to provide a bit of context behind the numbers. Now they say, according to the internet, and if it's on the internet it may be true, am I right or am I wrong? Tell me in the comments. Geekbench tends to give more realistic scores, I guess because it gives all of this information here, which should be testing real world performance, because most people deal with opening and closing files, compression, PDF reading, browsing the internet and so forth. This in Cinebench is a bit more ambiguous. It doesn't really tell you exactly what it reads or checks in terms of performance, but damn, for multi-core especially, the CPU red line like 105, 106 degrees. I think I saw it go as high as 108 degrees a couple of times. So there's obviously some thermal throttling happening there, unfortunately. But that more so happened in multi-core. But let's speak about single core first. Single core is at the top of the pack here, and that's based on the sample size that they have right here. It's ahead of the 11th gen i7 processor here, amongst others. Nerds, yet again, do with that what you will, right? But this helps to provide a bit of context. Single core, it's a champion, all M1 series Macs, and I think for these ARM chips, single core tends to be really up there, even with the Snapdragon processors. Now, let's check the multi-core processor. Well, multi-core test. It's not gonna win any awards here. It's just below the Intel Xenon CPU and blah blah blah. But the single core performance is the most important for average users or your average Joe, because that's what's used for your web browsing, your photo editing, if you do any of that, just basic navigation, opening and closing apps, word processing, spreadsheets, all of those things. Single core, rely on a single core. Multi-core is more so for advanced video editing, 3D rendering, if you're doing any form of scientific analysis, whatever tools you're doing, and those kind of advanced processes which require multiple cores to do multiple simultaneous things at the same time. Now, that's about it. You nerds, feast your eyes on the performance and argue in the comments about the scores, that it's better than this and not better than that, and Apple sucks and get a Windows machine and all that crap. Let's jump in the comments with that stuff and let's get to the 3D Mark here. Now, this was pretty quick. Of course, this is just the Steel Nomad Lite. It did fairly well, finished it fairly quickly, 16.6 frames per second. And according to this thing, it's 81%. Well, it's better than 81% of compared to other devices or whatever the hell that means. But you don't buy a Mac for gaming, and it's not so much so of a performance thing. It's more so to do with macOS not being so well optimized for gaming. Not so much Apple's fault, yet sorta is, because they sorta were a bit late to the game to have specific tools and drivers and all that ready for developers and so forth. Took them years to do it. They sorta started taking it seriously since the M series of Macs, which started from 2020, so not long ago at all. Aside from that, it's good. You saw the performance for video editing with a bunch of other stuff, and with screen recording happening all at once, and this thing just worked. And that's the thing, that's the mantra of Apple devices. They just work, and I'm not really fanboying. It's really just how they are. They're prone to errors just like everything else, but very rarely compared to everything else. Now, that's about it. All you nerds, yet again, feast your eyes on the numbers and tell me what you think in the comments. Let's stop the screen recording here. And this time, I think I can actually close it. Right? I think I can. Right? Have I forgotten anything else? Have I forgotten anything? Have I forgotten anything? No? Yeah, haven't forgotten anything. Actually tested the screen recording to see if it was working. But yeah, that's it. That's more or less everything. I think I've covered anything and everything that there is to know about this thing after using it for 2 years. If I've missed anything, because it's a lot to talk about, this video is actually sadly going to be a lot longer than I actually wanted it to be. But anything else that you want to know that I may have missed, just hit me up in the comments and I'll answer immediately. I do my best to answer every single comment that I get. Final comments. Is there anything bad to say about this? I tend to get excited about tech and don't really speak much about negatives. I will come out and say that. Not really. I mean, taking it for what it is, it's the bottom of the barrel entry-level MacBook right now compared to the M1 Mac, which You'll be hard pressed to find this selling anywhere brand new. Solid performer. This is actually wifey's. Unfortunately, the screen got screwed. So I'm gonna fix that on the channel. Could subscribe for that one. I'm going to do that live, so you could follow along if you're having similar issues. And yeah, back to this thing. There's nothing really bad to say about it. The only thing I can say is that I wish it definitely had more ports, but because of how thin and light this thing is, yeah, you're not gonna find a USB-A port fitting on this thing. I mean, yeah, that's not gonna happen. The chassis is too thin. So I understand why, to an extent. They could have at least tossed in a SD card reader or even a micro HDMI port, just for the hell of it. But 2 years, everything I've thrown at it, it has handled. I've never had any performance issues. It has never crashed on me. There may be 1 and 2 software glitches here and there, but that's not so much so a hardware limitation, but more so software breaks. It happens with everything. Apple is not immune to it either. It happens nowhere near as much as Windows do. I'm gonna say that. Windows have to take the beating, but there is nothing to complain about this. Another thing I'll mention, the screen, it is pretty bright indoors. I personally see no need for it to be any brighter. I actually never have it at maximum brightness indoors. Outdoors, it depends. If you're in shade, yeah, it's fine. In the blazing sun, which I don't know why the hell you're gonna be using a laptop in the blazing sun, but it may require a bit more brightness. But the MacBook Pros are significantly brighter. I have tested them in the Apple Store and, you know, friends and stuff like that. But if you're on a budget, you own multiple Apple devices and you're locked in the ecosystem, you need a competent laptop but don't want to break the bank, this is it. This is actually my first Mac and I've had no need or want to upgrade. I've had this since the beginning of 2023. It came out the summer of 2022, so it's been exactly 2 years now. People should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video. I've never felt that I needed to upgrade, and even now with, you know, the alleged release or upcoming release of the M4 MacBook Air, it's tempting because I love to be on the bleeding edge. No, I'm not gonna do it because when I'm done with school, I'm going right back to my studio. I love the Mac Studio, guys, and I'm definitely going to be doing a review on that, a long-term review. I've owned that since, well, someone actually make 2 years since I owned that too. So I'm gonna be doing a review on that a couple weeks from now, or a couple days, who knows, due to my school schedule. Filming and releasing videos has been a bit tough. Things are ramping up, coming up to finals. It's the final semester. And yeah, guys, it's been a joy and been a pleasure. So if you're on the fence and you're on a budget, get it. Especially with the upgraded 16 gigabytes of RAM for the current M2 Air model, the entry base model, get it. You will not be disappointed. You're gonna love it. Trust me, you won't be looking back to Windows unlike me, unless you absolutely have to. So that's about it, people. I rambled on a bit, but just to let you guys know my personal real-world experience with this thing over 2 years. Thanks for tuning in. You don't know, I'll appreciate a like, subscribe, and of course hitting that little notification bell so you know when the next video is out. And see you guys in the next one. Peace out and take care.